yet, so can we kill the camera quite? We need to have these in advance next time. Okay. Yeah. We'll need the financial statements. You have the same?
Okay. I've got the,
Is it the same as the one we got?
Yeah, it's, but it's the updated financials
yeah,
we're
I've got
waiting on.
my pre-copy here.
The financials, the Cedars. All right, well, I guess we'll start without them.
Wonderful.
Yep. Good morning. This is the Tuesday, March 7th meeting of the Railroad Transportation Safety District. My name is Deb Shore, serving as chair. To my left from the City Council, Cindy Lamb and Roy Christensen, who serves as our vice chair. And to my right, Jennifer Brinkman and Todd Wilchin from the County Board. This is Jennifer's first meeting, and welcome her, and hope you find these issues interesting. First item on the agenda, the Open Meetings Act is posted at the rear of the hearing room. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Previously emailed.
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay. With no additions or corrections, call the roll, please.
Shore,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Abstain. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item number 2, statement of financial activity.
All right, good morning. Dennis Meyer, County Budget and Fiscal Officer, subbing for Liz Thanel today. So Liz opted for Florida instead. So like Deb mentioned earlier, I guess I'm the B team today. So as far as financial activity, the report is up through March 2nd. Tax revenues, we have received just a little less than $2 million on a $4.1 million budget, so we're right at about 48%. You know, February is kind of that last month for tax collections before March really rolls around, where you start really getting into the larger portion coming in. So that 48% will decrease as we move through these next upcoming months. Investment income on top of that has actually exceeded the budget. So we've received in a little over $65,000. So that is at 109%. So hopefully that just kind of means interest rates kind of keep just kind of gradually moving, so that we're actually, you know, collecting a little bit more than what we're used to over the year. So total receipts for the year so far is $2,048,864, putting us right at 49% of collections. On the disbursement side of things, between commissions, operating, and construction, we spent a little over $159,000, which when you look at it percentage-wise, that's about 2% of the budget. When we start looking at our total fund balance as of March 2nd, it's $18,057,522. That is split between what we've got sitting in cash and then what we've got sitting over in the investment side. We've got a little less than $1 million sitting in cash. We're at $948,571, which then leaves us an investment balance of $17,108,951. That then, on the financial activity, you'll see at the bottom of the page just how that $17 million is split out between different investment types. So as of March 2nd, that's where the RTSD is at.
Any questions for Dennis? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the statement of financial activity?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Christensen,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Shore.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dennis. Security First Cedars Agreement.
Good morning. Bill Cudel at Crosby Gunzel Law Firm. The county treasurer, as the statutory treasurer of the RTSD, has approached the RTSD about entering into a deposit placement agreement, and it goes by the acronym CDARS, CDARS, Deposit Placement Agreement. We have been approached, the RTSD, for those members who have been on the board for a few years, by the county treasurer's office on several occasions about entering into these types of agreements with various local financial institutions. This one is Security First Bank. And the county commissioners here are familiar with this agreement. It's very much similar to the agreement that was approved by the county commissioners with respect to county funds last December. The county attorney's office approached us recently about entering into these agreements directly with the bank. So this is a little bit different than what I've come before you previously on. In previous agreements, basically by addendum, the RTSD has piggybacked onto existing agreements between the county and the financial institution. In this case, the RTSD is entering in its own agreement with the financial institution, in this case, Security First Bank. It very much has similar and same terms as, again, we have seen previously. The purpose of this is to allow the county treasurer to achieve greater interest rates than what we could otherwise achieve in other investments. And so that's the reason for putting this before you at this particular meeting. I'm here for any questions you may have on this particular agreement.
I don't believe we have a representative from the county treasurer's office, but I'm sure Bill could answer any
We
questions.
do.
Oh, sorry, you were right behind me. I couldn't see you. Are there any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Cedars agreement with Security First.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Call the roll, please.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Short,
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Budget status. Roger.
Good morning, board members. Roger Feigert, representing RTSD. Just a quick comment that I might make. With that CDARS agreement signed and in place, then a fair bit of that cash that's currently in the checking account will be transferred over into that account. In working with Liz, we generally have recommended trying to keep somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $150,000 in the checking account and then move the rest over. So that'll get moved fairly quickly and start drawing a little bit of interest. Okay, current budget. Additional with the financial sheets that come out. My favorite sheet is our fiscal year budget and expenditure report. Shows 2016. Those were sent out electronically, and are they?
I
We-
don't
we'd
know.
made-
I didn't get it electronically. I've got everything else, but
You didn't get those?
I didn't see it. I don't know if.
Okay, and we were having copies made internally, so I can go check and make sure that you've each got a copy of those before we start.
Well,
Okay,
either that or we could, do you want to go check, see where they are? Or we could move on to,
let's
sorry?
do project updates and then come
I'm
back.
interested why the expenditure report is your favorite.
Well, because it has the operating budget at the top, it has a complete listing of the capital projects below. It shows a couple years' worth of expenditures, and on the same sheet, it shows where we are throughout the year in what we've spent of the existing budget. And then this time of year in March, at the far right-hand, that column is the proposed or draft budget for the next year. So it's one page that has a huge amount of financial information and can kind of track how you're doing. So
Thank you.
it's one I use on a regular basis, so.
Well, why don't we, since you're standing here, we'll go ahead and move on to project updates and wait for, because I know the expenditure report I have is dated through the end of
End of
January. And so the end of February would be helpful as we
Right.
discuss this. So project
Okay.
updates.
Okay.
Item 5.
And I will ask Chris Humphrey to come up and give us an update, and then Justin Peterson for those two projects. I would advise the board that I was fortunate enough to meet with the new Director of Public Projects for BNSF for the entire United States. He's housed in Dallas-Fort Worth, and the Assistant Director is housed in California. And I was able to meet with them in January on the annual trip to the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Got to spend a fair bit of time with them and talk about both of these projects. And well, it seems like it takes a long time to get things done with the railroads. I at least was encouraged that they seem to be supportive of those projects, and I'll let Chris and Justin kind of go through those, and then I'll close up with anything else. But they didn't throw me out of the room when I told them what we were hoping, asking, and going to expect of them in helping with the project. So with that, Chris.
Good morning, I'm Chris Humphrey, the project manager for the 33rd and Cornhusker project. And I just wanted to start out on a good note and show you an award that we won. So every year, the American Council of Consulting and Engineering
Consultant.
Yeah, American Council of Engineering Companies. So in February, they have awards for kind of celebrating the best engineering projects for consultant companies here in Nebraska. And our Pell study was the category winner for the planning studies. So we went up and celebrated that. It's quite an accomplishment. This was the first Pell study that was done in the state of Nebraska that was fully executed and acknowledged by the FHWA. So
And thanks, Shimmers, for the partnership on that project. It was very nice to see it recognized as it was.
Yep. So like Roger said, we've had conversations and meetings with BNSF and also NDOR kind of to get to that point where we can execute a memorandum of understanding. We do have one that is drafted, and it's been presented to both BNSF and NDOR. Our hope is at the end of this month, when there's a rail conference here in town, we'll also meet with BNSF and NDOR at that time and get to the point where we can begin execution of that document. And then after that, our goal would be to come back to the board, discuss with you the possibility of entering into the next phase, project phase, which would be the environmental NEPA process and preliminary engineering. And our goal would be to have a consultant on board by the end of this year, if possible. So, and also just to let you know, we do have a letter from NDOR acknowledging their support of the project. That was also passed on to BNSF. That's kind of helps with the memorandum of understanding and provides some more meat into execution of that document.
Any questions for Chris regarding this project update?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Justin, Hastings Sub relocation, otherwise known as Hobson Yard.
Yes. Good morning, Justin Peterson, Olson Associates. Just a quick update for you on the Hastings Sub relocation. At the same meeting where we met with BNSF, local public project staff, and NDOR staff, we also discussed this project. The real purpose of that is, if you remember at our last update, we talked a little bit about a list of questions, some preliminary maps that we had submitted to the BNSF, trying to get some reaction to some questions on this particular project with some concepts we laid out and their thoughts on them. Unfortunately, didn't get a lot of response to those questions yet. We actually gave them a few more questions to think about, take back internally, and discuss with some updated concepts. Again, the same things that we were hearing before is they want to make sure that they fully understand the concepts, the tie-in points that we're recommending, making sure that, you know, what is being proposed with the concepts is not going to have a negative impact to existing operations. And so they're taking that back to their operations staff, as well as, you know, some local staff of managing the yard itself, trying to evaluate all those things. I think we gave them some really good options of different things to consider. You know, some of the concepts we did end up actually saving them a little bit of money on some maintenance for some existing diamond crossings, some of the things that they have in their plans right now or in their current layout. And so we're really hopeful that what we've laid out is something that they can buy into. You know, when you sit in these meetings, you hear a lot of the same comments as they want to make sure they're made whole, and it's going to take them some time to evaluate that. And so we're ever hopeful that within the next month or two that we can kind of get some traction on that end, get some responses from BNSF staff. I will, you know, definitely give a quick kudos to Roger. He definitely engaged their staff at a higher level when he was out in DC, and I think it really kind of spurred this meeting happening for both 33rd and Cornhusker and the Hastings sub-relocation. So, I mean, it's definitely on their radar now. They're thinking about it. We're continuing to check in regularly, but not try to overwhelm them with, you know, nagging about where we are at with those responses. But again, schedule-wise, we're still trying. We are very hopeful that if we get all these questions answered, we can then finalize our layouts and reach a consensus of what, you know, the final proposal that we take forward for our exhibit, and we can get a cost estimate put together on that, and then come back to this group and discuss next steps if we think there's viability, and including that as an amendment or an attachment to the current Southwest Lincoln Quiet Zone project as an option instead of the improvements that we talked about before actually going forward with this alternative. And so that'll be something I'm hopeful that we can get on the fall meeting agenda with the final recommendation. But again, it's all tied into how quickly we get responses. Yeah. Questions?
I do have a question, but it's for Roger.
Okay.
Kind of an overall,
Just
I guess,
stay right
question.
there, too.
Yeah. Roger, and I appreciate that you were able to talk to the Burlington Northern Santa Fe representative, but, I mean, they've recently announced that they've greatly reduced their capital outlays. So I guess, how do you anticipate that would have an effect on our projects? I mean, obviously, you'll see, because of a reduction in their investments, you'll continue to see, I guess, longer delays on these projects.
Well, I would like to think that our projects and the history that we've had with the railroad over, particularly BNSF, if you look at the entire corridor along Cornhusker Highway, South 3rd Street, and down in Hickman, I think our kind of projects versus some of the capital projects they were discussing, theirs is more about increasing freightability and building more of their infrastructure. I think our projects have more to do with reduction in liability, increased safety, perhaps reduction in some of their operating costs. So I guess I would say I think there's reason for us to be concerned, but at the same time, I think it points out we need to stay very proactive and keep pushing that these projects improve safety, save lives, and reduce costs for the railroad, and therefore they should be a high priority. I mean, we did discuss in DC the fact that, you know, clean air coal is down, but BNSF is currently now starting to ship oil by train from Texas and Oklahoma. That a piece of that comes up through here. It's a different direction than the coal that's going, but it does come through Lincoln the same way. So I think there is still an increased need for that. I guess it just means that I will renew my efforts to continue to stay with them, stay on them, and try to move this ahead. Probably have a better sense of where we are. Nebraska Department of Roads is sponsoring a 4-state highway rail safety conference the end of March here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Those same managers from BNSF will be back in town. And part of the goal when we gave them the draft was that we'd be in a position to know that we'd had some responses. I've asked them that we'd like to sign that at the end of March. If not, then the goal would be at the June board meeting to be able to come back to this board with that MOU signed. So, like many entities, that's a long answer. I think it's a challenge, but I think that They may not speak about it publicly, but I think BNSF looks at the history of working with the county and the city and what we've done to improve things, and will still see this as an important project and try to leverage the money for it.
At what point do we need to provide updated information to the neighborhood association? And we did have the open house, was that last summer with options and
About a year ago now.
a year ago?
Yep.
I really think that we've got to have enough information back and answers to the question, is it feasible and approximately what it's going to cost? And if it's feasible, and will the railroad support before we would go back out. Anything else at this point, I think, would be speculative. And I realize that we're asking folks to continue to listen to noise and whatnot, but I still think the potential for a better outcome is there than coming back. So if we get into summer, if nothing else, and we're not getting there, I guess the other thing is we could look at a newsletter or communication that we'd get out to everybody so they'd make sure to know where we are, as well as posting something maybe on our website, updating where we are.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We'll return to the budget status
Okay,
with your,
so did you find my favorite sheet then? Okay, all right. Very quickly, I guess I would say I think we're on track. We're doing well. Just a couple things that I would point out. The upper third is the operating budget. There is a red number in there under insurance. We've overspent the insurance budget, but I think we knew that was going to occur. We had recommendations from both the city and the county risk managers that we should pick up and carry public officials' liability insurance, and we have done that. So when we talk about the upcoming budget, I'll propose to increase that. So that's really the only anomaly perhaps in the operating budget. Crossings, we spent a little over $26,000 on city crossings. That was paying for that new crossing that BNSF put in out near 63rd and Cornhusker. Under miscellaneous engineering, we spent about $15,500. That's where we were paying FHU for the quiet zone reevaluation, and we had I think an $18,000 budget, so we should be able to finish that on track. 33rd in BNSF, I'm just kind of going down that middle column through 3.2 where we have expenditures. The $28,055, that's really Chris Humphrey and my time as we have worked on this project. We haven't paid any additional out to any consultants. Southwest Quiet Zone feasibility, there was some expenditure just that was paying off the work that had been to date, and then we've kind of put the rest of the expenditure on hold. We'll carry over some of that into the upcoming budget. Hastings sub, $80,000. We've spent just a little under $18,000 on that, and we'll just continue to work on that and hope we get some additional information to give you some perspective of the railroad and their staff, not to make any excuse, but to try to put it in perspective. They have a director of public projects that serves the entire United States. They have two assistant directors under that director. One is in Minneapolis, one is in California. And then each of those assistant directors has probably 3 or 4 public project managers. And our public project manager is Amber Stoffel. She's housed in Denver. She services Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming. And the last time we met with her, when she pulled out her list of projects, she has 400 active projects in the 3 states. So when we do get some action from them, I'm appreciative of that. I guess these projects here in Lincoln, we are just one city in Nebraska. There are cities and counties as well as the DOTs in all 3 of those states that are currently working with the railroad. So I can see why it's a challenge for them at times to get everything done. But they have been responsive, and they did ask for our MOU in a in a Word document so they could start making comments or changes or requests, so at least I know they're looking at it, and am hopeful that that's moving along. So, that's kind of where we are on the budget. I would try to answer any questions that you might
Any
have.
questions on the current budget update? Jennifer?
Roger, can you just remind me what the fiscal year is for the RTSD?
July 1, June 30, same as the county. Okay.
All right, then we'll move on to crossing updates.
Okay. Just a couple of quick things. Just a reminder that A is the quiet zone reaffirm. That work has been done. Letter sent to Federal Rail Administration. And we've updated the RTSD website. You can go to the city website, type in RTSD, and it'll take you to that. There's also a link on the city website. There's a link on the county commissioner's website that will take you to the RTSD. You can go in and research what quiet zones are, some of the requirements. They're all listed in there, and we now have the documentation showing the reaffirmation of Cornhusker as well as the ones through South Salt Creek, all online. And then we'll remind ourselves that Hickman and Waverly's quiet zones will come up in the future, and those will also have to be dealt with. Rick Hayden is here in case you had any questions. FHU did that reeval for us, and we appreciate that. Raymond Road, north of Lincoln, that's on the Union Pacific tracks. We need a diagnostic meeting out there, and the date of that is still to be determined. I have committed to the county engineer to try to schedule that meeting. The possibility that the traffic is picked up enough on Raymond Road going out to Highway 79 that it perhaps warrants upgraded lights and gates added to that. So that's on our list of things to work on. 91st and Yankee Hill is the OPPD crossing on the City of Lincoln's new Yankee Hill Road project that is moving through. A good share of that crossing is constructed. The road is not open, I'm assuming, after the city construction season starts off in the spring, and that gets further and completed, and we will start getting some bills from the city to help pay for our share of that crossing. And then I listed 66th and Pine Lake. Simply, that project is currently under design. That also has an OPPD crossing that will get upgraded gates and lights, and we'll continue to budget money for that in future budgets to assist with the road project.
I think you skipped 70th and Yankee Hill.
Oh, I did. Thank you. 70th and Yankee Hill, approximately a week to 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, OPPD did at our request and the county engineer's request come in and they did a one-day closure and completely removed the old railroad ties and put new ones in. I have not yet driven the crossing, but I hope that I haven't had any complaints, so it should be upgraded and smoother. I did notice, and I have driven twice, 56th and Old Cheney Road, City Public Works maintenance folks, Sunday night, Monday morning at 3 a.m. went in there and ground down the crossings adjacent to the rails in there to smooth that up. That crossing gets some repair. The concrete on either side gets some repair when the city goes ahead and does its pavement repair federal aid project on Old Cheney from 40th Street to Highway 2 later this spring. So the potholes and some of those paving disrepair will get fixed. But in the interim, we ground down some of the asphalt to make the ride a little bit smoother in the interim.
Any questions regarding crossing updates? Okay, we will move on to the draft budget and CIP.
Okay. All right. Also on my same sheet at the far right is a projected start for a draft budget. Also attached with that and behind it is a 12-year CIP sheet. I would remind those watching as well as new board members, the RTSD's budgets and appropriations to projects do not carry over from one fiscal year to the next. So any money budgeted but unexpended, if you want to have it, you need to reappropriate it or rebudget it for the next year. That's why sometimes you see larger numbers or the same number moving from the current year over into the second year. The operating budget, FY18 draft, everything, I increased the secretarial just $500. It seems like maybe now that I am more focused on RTSD, that we are trying to clean up processes and some of that kind of stuff. So between Janelle's time and Susie Philippi working on draft budgets and CIP, there's a little bit more time charged there. So I increased that a little bit. I also increased the legal services. We're proposing we increase that from $5,000 to $7,500. I'm spending more time and having Bill Kudaluk review documents. We've got contracts coming forward. Again, working with him. The CDARS agreement is an example of that. He spent a tremendous amount of time working with the county treasurer's office and trying to get that right, make sure we're doing the right thing. So I thought we ought to increase that. And I increased the insurance, banking, and miscellaneous contracts from $3,100, I'm suggesting $5,500 to try to cover that annual increased cost for the insurance. In the projects, the lower two-thirds under construction projects, the upper 3 or 4 lines are crossings. Total of $300,000. That's to pay for improved crossings or crossing repair that would come up in the city and the county. I propose to just leave those the same. And then just quickly going down through OPPD in 91st and Yankee Hill. I'm showing 500 over there, but whatever expenses get paid out between now and June or the 1st of July, I would subtract off of that. Some of that may get paid out, but it could carry over. Continue to carry money for the Salt Creek underpass of BNSF tracks on the east side of Hobson Yard. That's an NRD shared project. Miscellaneous engineering and emergency and safety, both of those I'd propose that we continue those as we have in the past, $100,000 each. 33rd and BNSF, I guess I would recommend again we put $1 million in there as a placeholder, and we would need to come back to the board. If we get an MOU signed or we have a level of comfort that we have our stakeholders on board in June, then with a vote from the board to move ahead, we'd need to put out an RFP, interview consultants again. It could be close to the end of the year before we actually had an engineering firm on board to start. The next step after the Pell study would be environmental and preliminary engineering. So we'd use that as a placeholder, but a contract would have to come back to this board to approve before any expenditure would be made there, other than Chris and my time for daily activity or just working on the administration of that project. I continue to show $500,000 in there for a possible crossing of OPPD south of 84th Street. Again, that's kind of a placeholder. I don't recommend that we go spend any money on a crossing down there if they're not running trains. But it is a street that if all of a sudden OPPD for some reason started running trains there with the traffic volumes on South 84th Street, it would probably warrant something other than the current safety measures that are out there. South Beltway went up from $6.5 million to $8.6 million. You remember each year we took the $13 million, divided it by 6 years, and we've been accumulating that every year to be able to pay off or assist the city in the 20% cost share for the South Beltway. There has been information in the news of late saying that the cost estimate of the South Beltway has gone up. From 200, the number the city and the RTSD had been operating on was a $200 million project. So that meant the city share was around $40 million, of which $13 million the RTSD was potentially going to help share for the railroad costs. One would have to assume if the cost estimates have gone up, the cost share for the city and potential railroad improvements have gone up likewise. The city and the Nebraska Department of Roads are continuing to meet and discuss how they're going to deal with those potential increased costs. That's unknown, so I think it would be purely speculative on my part to tell you what I think the new RTSD eligible costs might be, other than, I guess, a couple things that I would say I would work on is I think it's reasonable to think that that's going to go up and that we might, for cash flow purposes, be thinking of a number that's in the $16 or $17 million range. Again, the board has made no formal commitment other than conversation at the diocese and carrying a document, and only would that money be transferred if there's an agreement in place, and this board approved that agreement to do that. I think the city administration and I as well are hopeful that we can come to some terms with the Nebraska Department of Roads to sign the agreement, cap those costs, make them known, even if we have to pay off a little bit quicker to do some of that. So those conversations are going on, and as soon as we have anything more definitive, I'll certainly be sharing them with you. I didn't bring a whole series of cash flow documents today. This budget and the CIP is laid out on the assumption that county commissioners have been true to their word over the last 3 or 4 years of taking the 1 cent. We're clear back up to 1.9 cents, and the cash and projections next year are based on 2.2. Dennis Meyer is here in case he is clear in the back. Nothing is assured, and I don't want to presume, but to this point in time, the county has been able to continue to do what they said. They asked for a ramp back rate, and we have been following that. So I'm encouraged, and that will occur. I'll continue to run cash flow and whatnot for you as we get closer. I show moving $20,000 for the Southwest Lincoln Feasibility Quiet Zone. If for some reason the Hobson Yard project then didn't prove out feasible, we may need some dollars to go back and close that out, but I'll have better sense of where we are at the June meeting on that. And we had an $80,000, we have an $80,000 budget for the Hastings sub relocation. We have a contract that is less than that. We still have, as of this last week, $62,000. There's probably some time expended. As we get closer to the end of the year, I'll know what we need to carry over for them to be able to finish that project as well.
Roger, excuse
Yes.
me.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Cindy.
That's
The
okay.
numbers.
When you say closer to the end of the year, you're talking the fiscal year or the calendar year?
Fiscal year,
Thank you.
sorry.
That's
As
okay.
we get closer, when I come in, when the board meets again in June, we should have a pretty good handle of where those expenditures are to make decisions, and we can certainly, you'll have a draft budget, and we can make adjustments even at that board meeting of what to carry over, what to reduce in a proposed budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions about the draft budget? And did you want to address the CIP on the next page?
CIP on the next page just is a continued listing, the upper portion, crossing improvements all the way across. We have the individual crossings. I've carried out miscellaneous engineering, emergency and safety all the way through. We continue to show enough money, I think, to fund 33rd and Cornhusker all the way through if we get started. And we show enough money then in the next 2 additional fiscal years, 18, 19, 19, 20 for South Beltway. If the Hastings sub-relocation moves forward, that project is not in any way, shape, or form laid out in the cash flow here, so we would need to reevaluate that and lay it out. But based on the current revenues coming in and the way this CIP is laid out, the RTSD stays positive and in the black and can afford those projects under the current assumptions. So financially, I think that's fairly secure.
Okay. Any questions about the CIP? No, this is for information only, so no action is needed.
I guess I would say certainly if there are crossings, projects, or other things that you're hearing about or feel that that ought to be considered or at least talked about in this upcoming budget, please let me know. You can send stuff to me at any point in time. Okay.
We'll move on then to item 8, West Windstruck Crossing Study Contract. Pam is here as well, County Engineer.
I might ask her to come and join me. I wasn't sure whether you guys had visual aids of this wonderful county road crossing.
Well,
Okay.
the county board has seen it on many occasions. We've actually seen the actual at-grade photos, thanks to the county engineer, so.
Okay. So maybe I'll start very quickly. Pam asked for county engineer.
We
Ms.
do,
Dingman
if
asked
you want to
for-
put one on the Elmo just briefly, so if for the dozen of people watching, that they can have a visual on what we're looking at. Okay.
Okay, so this is West Woodstruck Road, crossing the BNSF tracks in the far southwest corner of Lancaster County. 142nd is about right here, is that right, Pam?
Correct,
Half a mile down is Parker Road,
that's correct.
and there is another mile line road here, and I forget the number on that, 130 something, 2 maybe.
Yeah, 132.
Anyway, this is, the county road is coming up, then it turns 90 degrees to go down. The railroad tracks is below the county crossing if you just run it straight through there. So Pam and I would both tell you we're not quite sure how that crossing got built to that point, but as Pam came online and asked for, as county engineer, and was asking for some assistance on county crossing, she said this was one of her worst. So asked if I would help in maybe doing a small feasibility or safety study. I told her I would. So throughout my career of working with the RTSD, with it being managed by the City of Lincoln, there is a formal process for the selection of professional services by executive order for the city, and it lays out the different ranges. Ms. Dingman and I went above and beyond that. For engineering services expected to be less than $100,000, she and I could have simply contacted a firm, sat down and said, here's what we want you to do, and negotiated a fee. For contracts between 100 and 250, you're supposed to solicit at least 3 proposals. We went a little above and beyond. We wrote a simple RFP that was mailed out to 3 firms, Kirk and Michael, Olson Associates, and FHU. And we got those in on February 15th. They came in. Ms. Dingman and I reviewed those proposals, and based on schedule, project approach, and I would say the range of the fee, not exactly the fee, we chose and would be recommending to you today that if we were going to enter in, if the RTSD was going to assist in this, that we ask Olson Associates then, we selected them, and we have drafted a final scope, and you do have a copy of a final contract in there to do that work. And maybe I interrupt me if you have questions at any point in time. I think there's probably 2 issues before you today. One is this a study the RTSD should do on behalf of the county? I think it fits very clearly and easily within the mission of the RTSD. And later on, if you move ahead and ask, well, where would we pay for that? I would recommend to you that there is money in the emergency and safety category of the existing budget to easily pay for that. I think that fits in that category.
Pam, do you have any comments about the crossing itself or concerns? I know I went out and drove it yesterday. It's as funky as it looks on the map.
It indeed is intriguing, and like many of the things that I come across in county engineering, we kind of ask ourselves a lot, how did we get here? And so I think the other thing that's really important to note is as the crossing drops down to the railroad, it's probably every bit of a 10% vertical drop, dropping easily 6 to 8 feet, and then rising on the other side another 6 to 8 feet. It is a one-lane crossing, and so we have on Witstruck flashing lights that indicate that you are coming up onto a one-lane road. The danger, of course, is that once you drop down into this 10% grade to cross this single lane track, that you can't see a car that's down in there. Our other concern is that as we maintain this, is of course we get a motor grader down in this very narrow, very small area, which creates some additional dangers for our operator and our equipment as they descend into this area. I have concerns that the road should remain open because we have God-given topography in this area, and we don't have every mile of section line open in this area. We have several disconnected miles due to natural drainage and environmental issues that exist in the area. So although the road doesn't have an extraordinarily high traffic count, it does contribute to the connectivity of this area and is very important.
Roy?
What's the cost estimate?
$17,900. I might carry on. I want to make sure it's crystal clear that the county engineer is not advocating for a closure option. The study does look at a couple of crossing options plus a closure crossing. So, and again, I'm not necessarily advocating, but I think we live in a time where as budgets are tight, we have to evaluate on a regular basis the cost of service. And so I am challenging our county engineer, as well as perhaps city staff as well, is do we need every roadway that we currently have? And at least in this study, part of that study could be the consideration of what would be the impacts to the abutting property owners and the traveling public if the crossing was closed. So that would be part of that done. But I want to make it crystal clear to the public that this isn't being advocated or recommended by the county engineer. And clearly, if the board moves ahead with this contract and there's an evaluation of costs and what to do before anything could move ahead, then you would really move into kind of a preliminary engineering, and that would involve a public process to go out and meet with folks and talk about those various options. So I don't want any of the property owners out there that might be listening or get wind of this to say that the RTSD and or the county can go out there or is proposing automatically to close the crossing. But as you look across the entire county, there are places where mile line roads don't go through for a number of reasons. Environmental, just physical features, and I think all I'm saying is that in this day and age, we need to evaluate. We no longer have a farmstead every 160 acres. In the old days, we did. And so I think it behooves us to at least look at the circulation, the access points, so that we could speak intelligently with facts, pluses and minuses of that option. So that option is in there, but I thought I should make that clear that that was at the request of the RTSD executive director, not the county engineer.
And is do nothing an option as well?
Do nothing is always an option. I just want to reiterate as the county engineer that I do not believe it is going in the right direction if we start choosing to close these roads based on budgetary concerns alone. and I will adamantly defend keeping our roadways open in the county. I will adamantly defend, even although farming has changed, that we still need farm-to-market routes. And in this particular area where we have several section line roads that have never been opened up, I believe that we need to maintain connectivity in this area.
But,
Todd?
but I think that's the purpose of the study. I think we will, just like all the other feasibility studies, have the understanding of what the options are so that we can make an informed decision.
Agreed. And I also want to make clear, I wouldn't be proposing a closure option just on budget. Budget is just one piece of that. What are the service needs? What are the emergency and safety issues in the area too? So I'm not saying that we'd choose to do nothing just because of budgets. It would have to be because it's the aggregately correct decision based on a number of other factors as well. So, and also I would say, just because the board might choose to approve this contract and move ahead, doesn't necessarily make any assumption about the future cost share or who might actually pay for a project in the future. That would have to occur later on.
I move that we approve this crossing study contract.
Second.
Any additional questions? Call the roll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Roger, do you have a time frame on start and finish for this contract?
ASAP.
Okay.
So we'll get it signed here today. They will be given their notice to proceed and charge away.
Okay. Moving on, item 9, non-agenda items, and opportunity for public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to make public comment?
I move adjournment.
Second.
Oh, there's one non-agenda item. Hold on just a second.
One. Okay.
To try to do a better job of making sure we have accurate information, I have a RTSD board contact sheet that I'd like to hand out and have board members to fill out in the future. Our goal would be to make that available, not to the public, but available such that you would have access to that so you could update it, so that Janelle, myself, and others would have the appropriate contact information. So I'll hand that out.
Now I'll move adjournment.
I'll second.
Okay, and we'll note that the next meeting is Monday, June 5th, in this same room at 11 a.m. Call the roll, please.
Not here.
Yes.
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 Raybold.
Brinkman.
Brinkman.
Yes.
There you go.
The motion carries with some other people joining in. Roll call. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time and attention.